Good morning. All right, so this is a photo of an internal reform that we did at home years ago. All right, as you see, we demolished all the walls and we rebuilt everything from scratch. Okay, um, these are complex projects. Like you have to decide from the room distribution to the interior design to the location of every single light switch and socket. It's complex, and it's that kind of project that as it progresses, you get setbacks, and you have to rethink part of the projects. And also, as the project takes shape and you are able to visualize things, then you realize that maybe you have to change your mind about some details. So in a sense, not unlike software projects. And in this particular project, I applied two things that I have learned from my experience doing software development. The first one was to not explain, to not give them the solution, but to explain them the problem. Give me the problem, not the solution. That translates, in this particular project, we are not coming here with a floor plan or something like that. So we explain it to the agency how we like to live, and the aesthetics that we like, because we are not the experts, they are, right? So we explain how we like to live and how we like things, and they came with proposals that we couldn't have think of. So the other one, and this was very surprising for them, is that we didn't want a date. They were very surprised because they said to us that every client wants a deadline in their reforms. We didn't want a deadline. Why? Because when things happen during the project, I want everyone in the project to be focused on the result. We care about the result. This is the result. I don't care about whether this took 4 months, 5 months, it doesn't matter. This is going to be probably our home for the rest of our lives. That's what matters. So what mattered to us was that the project took whatever they had to take, but that was the project that we, in the end, liked. So I have been working with dates for about 14 years. It's going to be 15 in June. And this is the way I work, and this is, in a sense, a personal talk, in the sense that I do not imply that you have to work this way, or that you have to like this way of working. All right? This is the way I work, and this talk is about sharing why I work this way, my experience doing that, that kind of thing. All right? So it's just sharing my experience and my way to look at these things. So in order to explain that, in this particular talk, it's convenient that you have a little background about me. All right, so this was my first computer when I was a kid. I learned programming by myself using a magazine. There was no internet or anything. This computer didn't have even a hard disk. The hard disks were not a thing by then. It only has 2 floppies here. All right. Yeah, I was a kid. I was learning with that computer. And I was a curious guy, but I quit high school being 16. Quit, all right? I go with my father. My father has a little business, a small business, doing wholesale pastries. So a wholesaler is that intermediate between the manufacturer and the shop, all right? And pastries, so croissants or something like that. Unfortunately, they didn't sell banitza. And I think that if they did, we could certify yesterday that we would have either a Ferrari or a Porsche in the garage, but no banitza. So I worked also in a music shop part-time for some time, and then I went back to high school being 21, all right? I changed gears here, and by going to high school being a little bit older, I discovered that I like mathematics. So I am into that. I am offered a position as a math teacher in the same academy I was doing in high school. I took that position in the summers, and then I went to the math faculty. This is the math faculty in the Dead Center of Barcelona. Those were amazing years studying math. And During my degree, I became a proofreader of math textbooks. I did that for 6 years for a publisher. And after doing my degree, I started a little bit of PhD, but I was 31. I decided to change gears again. I always liked software. I program it on the side, always, you know. So I took my first job as a programmer being 31. That was, you know, an agency. We did software, mostly Java, and overlapping in these years. So I had a full-time job, but I like teaching. I was offered a part-time lecturer position at the University of Barcelona again. So I did a full-time job, and then in my spare time, I went to the university and taught some classes for 7 years. I did that until our daughter was born, and then it was a little bit too much, everything, so I had to quit doing classes. But those were amazing years. The next step after my first software job was to found, Rails was a thing by then, was to found a Rails shop, all right, specialized in Rails. I was the CTO of that company. I was there for 3 years, and after that, I became independent. So I've been doing consultancy, freelancing, how you want to call it. Since then, that was 2009, so 14 years. All right, so as you see, I am not, you know, doing a CS degree and going to do software. So I have a little bit of background, okay? I have seen different types of projects. It's not the same to do a syllabus in a course or to drive a van and to take, you know, some goods to a shop, you know? That is not the same kind of task that the tasks that you do in projects or in, you know, in contexts where uncertainty and unknowns are more common. You know, there are certain things that are more predictable. There are certain tasks that are less predictable. And in my experience, what I could witness was that for the second ones, working with updates is just better. That's the way I feel it, all right? So at the core of this is software estimation. So this is not to talk about software estimations, but at the root of many of the things that are related to this, I believe, there's software estimations. So I wanted to share this post. This post is from 2013. It's not online. I had to you know, recover it from the web archive. And this was hilarious, but at the same time, it was just spot on, all right? So this post is, as you see, titled, "Why Are Software Development Estimates Regularly Off by a Factor of 2 or 3 times?" And it's a metaphor, an hilarious metaphor. If you read it, you are going to laugh quite a bit. But I am going to just summarize the post, okay? So this is 2 friends. These 2 friends are in San Francisco, and they want to visit other friends in Los Angeles, all right? And they say, let's do a hike. Well, let's do an adventure here. We're going to hike from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And they take a map and say, about 400 miles, all right? We are going to have 400 miles. We are going to walk at this speed, this many hours a day. They call the friends, please, we are going to have dinner with you such and such Sunday. All right. They start the journey, all right? So next day, they take the equipment and start the journey and take, this is the zoom here is this one. They need a little bit more zoom when they start to know what they have to do. So they take a little more detailed map and they, oh, wait, this is not so straight, all right? The twists, I don't know. Oh, this is not going to be 400 miles. Maybe 500 miles perhaps. All right, so they call the friends, all right? It's not going to be Sunday. Maybe Tuesday, please, Tuesday for dinner. All right, Tuesday. So, right, okay, they take the equipment, start walking, Yeah, fine, and well, they soon start to find something like this. So it's not like a paved concrete thing, level it. So it's sun, there's changes in altitude, there's uncharted territory, So, well, this slows them down a lot. They didn't expect this. But you have sun, you know, you have to go through road terrain. You get sun in the shoes, so they slow down. Not only they slow down, but the sun in the shoes makes them blisters. They don't have band-aids, so and they are in the coast, you know, so they have to go inland to buy band-aids in a pharmacy, and then go back. They lose a lot of time. They camp, and when they wake up the next morning, this is what they find, you know. Impossible. Oh man, this is impossible. They have to look like this, work around because they cannot cross this. So they have an argument. They have an argument. Should we, you know, stop this, or should we abort the mission? One of them says, if we put the hours, crunch time, you know, maybe we can make it, you know, let's go. The other one doesn't want to do that. They have an argument. They decide to continue. Then they find a river, you know, and it's not working. So the first estimation was 10 days, and when they are in the middle, in the 5th day, they realized they are still there, right? They have not even crossed the Bay Area. So it doesn't doesn't end well. And this is I believe a good metaphor of what happens in software projects. You know, most of the times, you know, there are unknowns. You find things, you know, and that you know, you have to adapt to the things that you find, you know, on your way. All right. So as I said, I did software in a company using traditional, you know, methods of estimations and deliveries and deadlines with clients and everything. You know, I did that. You know, for many years I have not done that, but my clients perhaps internally work that way. So I have my personal observations about the implications of, I would say, date-centered workflows. You know, that's a generic term for the concept of the way our work is organized. There's always dates around that in some way. It can vary depending on the company, you know, but there's always dates, you know. That's always, you know, like a helicopter. They are always, you know, they overlooking you. So the first one that I want to share is that you kind of see people working for the system. Working for the system means you are not fully concentrated on the task at hand, but your energy is diverted to the ceremonies and to please the system. So there's a system in place. You have dates, you have meetings to estimate, you have retrospectives or whatever, depending on the system, you know. But there's a lot of energy diverted, not to the task that you have to do, but to other artificial things around the thing that interfere with your mind, in my experience. Now we have this concept of fixed length cadences. This also depends on the team, but sometimes it's very common to have, for instance, sprints, the concept of a sprint, okay? 2 weeks sprints. We work in blocks of 2 weeks. We work in blocks of 4 weeks, all right? Well, if you have a box of 1 per 1, and you have a container 10 per 10, you're going to fit 100 boxes in that container. However, tasks in software are not so square, all right? So in practice, it's very difficult that you plan your sprint and you say we are going to do this. It's very difficult that's going to fit 2 weeks, man. It just doesn't happen, all right? So that creates friction. That makes the environment not as smooth. You know, you're diverted in your mind from the main task. Dates also come with some, I could say, psychological aspects. By that I mean that you are going to try to make the deadline, basically. You're going to try to make it because there's expectations of you. Because when you work with dates, there starts to be a vocabulary, you know, which is this is on time, this is on track, this is late, and you do not want to be called late in a meeting. Normally, normally. So you're going to try to make it, and that perverts the system, because you're going to cut corners. I don't know. You're going to not do what you would do in normal circumstances to try to meet the deadline, to try to meet the expectations. You observe that, I'm sure you have experienced this, the not so done tasks. So we have to do this task, and when the date arrives, you say, done. But it is really done. Sometimes it is not really for real. For real, it is not done. Maybe you should have done that refactor, but you said, all right, it could be, but let's do this quick and dirty thing, maybe later. It's never later, because when the sprint ends or whatever, the mindset is what is next. Is not, no, I am not going to do anything. I'm going to do that refactor. Normally, that's not the case. Maybe the coverage was not so good, and this compounds, because this not so done code ends up in the repository. And then 2 years later, you arrive on a state of the project that says, why are we here? I don't know. I don't know. This has to be redesigned, because that's the accumulation of a number of not so done tasks. And the final observation that to me is the most important one is that when I see people working with dates, most of the time, the date is not that important. Some dates are important. I am going to talk about them later. But if you say, okay, this quarter, we have to do this because it comes from management or whatever, But why this quarter? Exactly, why is that precisely this quarter? Could this be more flexible? Like, we want this feature, which has this level of complexity, so it's not 5 years, right? Let's do the feature, It's going to be this quarter, or it's going to be 10 weeks or 20 weeks, I don't know. Does it really matter that it's this quarter or this sprint or, this particular deadline? In my experience, that's a personal observation. Most of the times, it really doesn't matter. But since you try to make it, there's artificial interferences in the project, and for no real, substance, the date, most of the times, in my experience, does not matter. So that is my observation. There's a lot of distraction, and there's a lot of non-essential overhead in the way you work, in the way the team works, in the way things are done, and in the way things are implemented are in production, all the consequences of doing that. Those are my observations. And those were my impressions when I started doing freelancing, and I was like, this is my opportunity to try to work the way I believe it makes more sense most of the time for software projects, and I tried to make it, and fortunately, it has worked out, and I've been doing that for 14 years. So, let me try to summarize what I believe is the essence of working without dates. It's a mindset. So this is not like a procedure or a technique. I want to explain this more as a mentality, as a way of thinking, as a way of working. The first is that you have the sense of priorities. This depends on the project. Could be a prioritized backlog. Could be in your open source project, what's next? Basically, the question is, what's next? We are going to work now on this, right? Ideally, on one thing. All right? But you know what is next. Maybe you have a work plan, and it makes sense that the next thing that I'm going to do is this. Focus on that. Then, continuous delivery means that you are always shipping. Always shipping. All right? And this depends on the context. It could be, actually shipping stuff to production. It could be that you have to take a technical decision for this part of the project, and you do your research, you know, and you come to a conclusion that you share with the team. Maybe it's a video saying, look, I look at these options, I run this benchmark, I believe this technique is appropriate for our problem. What do you think? You know, there's always, you know, it's a continuous delivery. You have to build momentum. That's the thing. So your attitude and you know, your attitude, the attitude of the team, it's always building momentum. The project is always moving forward. That's the sensation that you have, that all the things are moving forward. Okay, moving forward sometimes means going backwards. That's the trick. You are not constrained by anything. Like in my integral reform, if we want to change completely the redesign of something, that in a sense that is going backwards, but in a real sense that's going forward, because you are getting a better solution, you know? So building momentum. And these are the kind of things that you feel. You feel focus, because there's nothing artificially interfering with your mind. Focus. Everyone is concentrated. Everyone is aligned with the things that are being done. There's intentionality in the way you push the project, you know? And in my experience, at least, the result usually has better quality, in the sense that better test, you know, that the solution has to be rushed out, basically. That's the idea. So I'm going to give you one particular example of a project done this way, all right? So this is a client that needs to parameterize their application. So they need to add multi-tenancy. It's a client that has a service that has different deployments in different countries. So they have a deployment in Spain, they have a deployment in UK, let's say, okay? Technically, they call it markets, all right? Okay, so the project is, we need to make this multi-tenant. Instead of having multiple deploys, because the databases were independent of each other, all right? So you have the same code base, basically, but different databases. And we want to, you know, aggregate all of this in one single deploy. The database has to be parameterized, and the application has to be parameterized. All right, that's the one-liner, all right? So do you wonder how much this is going to take? No, never. So there, in some contexts, and depending on your background, there's always, it's like a trigger. Like there's a question that says, when I am going to have this? It's like an automation in your mind, all right? You have to get rid of that. Do not question. If you have experience doing software, I don't know, you may have an idea of the complexity of the project, okay? Which level of complexity are we talking about? This is not the same as rewriting PostgreSQL from scratch. We all know that, all right? So you have like a sense of the complexity, but you don't wonder if this is going to be 3 months or 4 months. You do not even know the project, all right? So you start, all right? And the first thing that we did was to create a markets table with 2 rows, one for UK, one for Spain. Continuous delivery. So we are going to need the entity of a market. Let's create the table. Let's ship to production. The application doesn't care. There's a new table. But psychologically, you have already a table in production. You have already moved the project forward. Ship to production, continuous delivery, all right? You ship to production. Okay, how do the different deploys know which is their market? Because the code base is the same. Well, they know because there's an environment variable that says, okay? And then in the code base, maybe there's an if here and there, but it's like exceptional, you know? The code base is basically the same. Okay, so if the application has already today a notion of which is the market they are working on, we are going to do the following. We are going to add a high priority filter in controllers that says, given this environment variable, I am going to fetch the market from the database, and I define current market, like we have current user, okay? We have current market. Ship this to production. So shipping, always shipping, you know? That's the mindset. Now, the application doesn't care. There's a current market, nobody is using current market, all right? But you already have that, and you know, oh, I have available a current market in my application. So now we have to do a systematic analysis of all the models and say which ones need a foreign key, all right? All right, so this is a systematic part of the project. And you know, and the people knowing the model can say, these are the ones, you know, we need a foreign key for this one, this one, this one. The children do not need foreign keys, because if you come from parent to children, the parent is a scope, the children is going to be a scope automatically. You don't have to add foreign keys to everywhere, you know, only to the root models, let's say, you know. So you have to systematically, this needs a foreign key or not. Conscious decision, this needs one, all right. So you start to push the foreign keys to production, and you start to, one by one, all the markets, all the queries that need a market, they already have a market. So you can gradually work on the models, work on the tables, and work you know, on the code base to introduce the current market gradually. And you are always shipping, always shipping. Some models are factored, the other ones are not. But since the databases only have the information of that current market at that point, doesn't matter, all right? So the CTO of this company said at the end of the project, we changed the engine while the car was running, and it was exactly that way. All right, so after that, we had to merge the databases, and the question for the business was, if we need to not have downtime, the level of difficulty, it's way higher than if we can allow some downtime. And they were like, all right, if you do this in, you know, 2 or 3 a.m., we have a good time window due to our usage, you know, patterns. So we did that. In the end, well, that could be an interesting story as well, but I'm going to leave it here. We did the migration. And at no point we were wondering if we are going to meet something. The only thing that mattered is that the transition was correct, basically, right? All right, some objections to this way of working. There's this Parkinson law, okay? Parkinson law, this is not law as in the law of gravity, right? This is law, quote unquote, okay? So, work spans so as to fill the time available for the completion, all right? This could be, maybe statistically, this could be the case. We could wonder, what is that the case? Maybe if you, my idea is that basically if you have a deadline, you know, the expectations on you are that date. So you are trying to meet the expectations, basically. Maybe you can procrastinate a little bit, you know, because, well, I have time. Maybe you get a DM in a Slack saying, hey, could you make me this favor? And you are like, well, I am 10 days away from that date. Yeah, let's squeeze in this task, you know. It expands to the allotted time. So the implicit argument here is that if having a date, you feel it, if you do not have any date, that is going to go to infinity, basically. That's the implicit reasoning. But not only my experience, my personal experience says, no, that's not the case. But if we look at open source, and I mean in costs, okay, costs. So in open source, generally, as far as I know, generally, I'm not going to say 100% of the time. But in general, people do not work with dates. I do not work with dates in my open source. Rails core, of course, does not work with dates or estimations. I am not going to ask Aaron if that refactor is going to take 2 or 3 weeks. You don't ask that, you know. And in conferences, I never find people saying, I have to quit the party because I have this feature in my Rubocop that I have to finish for this Friday. You do that? So, but open source is continually shipping and is running the fucking internet. So, I don't know, the objection to me, doesn't work. Another one is that this is only for small companies or small teams. My counter-argument to that is that one of the big proponents of Kanban is one workflow that is more or less in this mindset, okay, if you need one particular workflow. Eric Bregner does this at Microsoft, all right? He has a book about that, and he has a video in YouTube about a meeting, or so a talk that he does internally at Microsoft about working without dates. So his team, he does Xbox, works without dates, all right? It's Kanban, it's this continuous flow. You take something, work on that, and eventually finish, next thing, and your focus is the work, always, only the task. And you are as isolated as possible from artificial constraints. A couple of ways in which this does not work. One of them is that for some people, dates are a motivation. I've been seeing that. Well, if that's your case, then work with dates. This is very personal, as I said in the beginning, right? If you need a date to motivate yourself, because otherwise, the way you work, you are going to do the thing. Well, then putting a date, it's what makes sense for you. That's absolutely fine, of course. The other one is hard deadlines. By hard deadlines, I do not mean the ones that come, from the heavens and say we need to have this for October because I said it. I mean the really hard deadlines, normally external, like the government has changed the laws about taxes. And if you do tax-related software, and those rules have to be in place for the next year, for instance, you have to have it for the next year. There's no way out, If you have something that has to ship for the Olympics, well, that's a harder line for the Super Bowl. I don't know. Those are the ones that are for real. So when I said most of the dates do not matter, it's because the myriad of dates that you see in your day-to-day, my observation is that in reality it doesn't matter, but there are some that matter. Okay, what to do in this case? Well, for me, there's two possible ways to address this. The first one is that if you have a hard deadline, this task has to have the highest priority. You cannot not make it. So highest priority. Anything else that does not have that constraint, secondary. You have to ensure that you put the effort here. All right? Highest priority. Take as much safety net as possible. So start super, super, super early in order to have peace of mind that you have like a good margin. If you end the task 1 month later, amazing, then you go and do other things. But your tranquility is in place because you made it. So start as soon as possible. And the other one, which is like having a way out, is depending on the project, but sometimes you can identify core features, like we absolutely have to ship these core features, and maybe there's an important subset of the project that are nice to haves. So the core features, you cannot ship without this. But this visual transition, this, I don't know, maybe this additional field, I don't know, depends on the project. But maybe you have some nice to haves. So if you identify these subsets, work on the core ones. Work on the core ones. So at least try to make sure that the core ones ship. All right? And then if there's time for the nice to have, then you do the nice to haves. Ideally, all of them. But the point is that if the data arrives and a few of those accessory ones did not make the cut, everyone is okay with that. So you have at least that level of, that safety margin, all right? So, yeah, I've been doing this for many years, and this has been extremely satisfactory from a professional point of view. because you work it on interesting projects, and you work it, this way with concentration, trying to make things as good as possible. But there's a very important aspect of working this way that I have not tell you about yet, which is that I have worked this way without the stress. There's no stress. There's focus. It's like flow. There's flow. But there's no stress because there's no artificial constraints, on you. So this is a very, very, very nice way of working, very healthy as well. And if you are used just by inertia to think always about dates, you are in the treadmill of always thinking about that, I invite you to consider, getting rid of this a little bit and try this alternative way of looking at projects. And that was all. Right? Thank you.